lovers and cinephiles. Welcome to another New Movie Tuesdays. I have just seen Bullet Train Explosion, a new Netflix movie that came out last month. Yep, skipped the theater this past week. Unfortunately, just had a lot going on. But since I had a little free time with the roommates, saw Bullet Train Explosion. From how the title sounds, if you haven't heard of it, it's about a bullet train that explodes. Pretty straightforward. This movie is from Japan. It's from the director Shinji Higuchi. I hope I'm saying your name right. Who directed Shin Ultraman, Shin Godzilla, Attack on Titan Part 1 and 2. I haven't seen any of that stuff, but these are his most recent credits, the biggest ones that I noticed. And it's a pretty fun movie. So, if any of you know the plot of the movie Speed, essentially in Speed, there's a bomb on a bus, and if the bus goes below 50 miles per hour, the bus explodes. And Keanu Reeves, part of the SWAT, FBI, I don't know what he is, police officer, I think. Yeah, he's something. Officer Keanu Reeves, Jack Travens, has to uh, help the help the people on the bus and make sure that they don't, go below 50 and blow up. So that's the plot of Speed. And essentially, that's the plot of Bullet Train. There's a bomb on the bullet train. If the bullet train goes below 100 miles per hour, it will explode. Unless a hefty ransom of 100 billion yen is paid to whoever the terrorist is. And you know what? It's a pretty good time. I had a really good time watching this. Watched this, like I said, with my roommates and a visiting family member. Really good time. Really entertaining movie. It's actually a sequel to a Japanese film that came out in 1975, also called Bullet Train. No relation to that one with Aaron Taylor Johnson. So it's a fun movie starring Hana Toyoshima, Rina Nonen, Tsuyoshi Kasanagi. And I gotta admit, I wrote these names down pretty poorly. The cast is great. It's very tension filled. It feels like a movie from another time period that just happens to be made today. It's this kind of more adventure premise where all these people are trapped on a train. The word gets out that there's a bomb on the train, and people panic, and you see how different people react to the situation and the tension as these bullet trains do go up to almost 200 miles per hour. So this bullet train, there you see the cross-cutting of the train operator people at the control centers trying to navigate trains away from each other so they don't crisscross, so they don't hit. And it's got all the tension that you need for a good adventure like this. And it's interesting. I would say the first two-thirds, or maybe just shy of two-thirds of this movie is so Speed. It's ridiculous. And then sort of the last third of the movie gets a little bit more personal, and you kind of figure out why this is all happening, and the connections to the original movie start to come to light. And I'd say it's a movie that just gets more interesting as it goes. And definitely, I thought it was a little bit weird that I didn't quite feel that there was a main character for the first two-thirds of the movie. But then all of a sudden, both the main character and the villain sort of shine in that last third, where we just have all this setup and we don't quite know where the story is going to go. And I don't know if it's all necessarily interesting, but when you see that there's this cavalcade of characters, there's a politician who's kind of got a bad name for herself. There is a man with a mask, and what's he doing? Is he part of this whole train bomb situation? He's the only one with the face mask in the entire train. And then we got a whole bunch of high schoolers who are actually just on a field trip just to experience the bullet train and learn about the bullet train. And then we have the conductor and his new assistant, who He's very serious about taking the job seriously and doing things right and making sure passengers are safe. And it's a nice kind of slow reveal that that conductor's kind of the hero of the story, even though we take all these kind of weaves into not stories that we haven't seen before, but I do like where they go with the politician and then the social media influencer who tries to take over the situation at a certain point in the movie, which is it's one of those things like this is awful, but this is also so real. I believe this would happen. It's kind of like in Shang Chi when there's the great Muni bus fight, and I love that because in that movie, growing up in San Francisco, I always fantasized about you know superhero fights on public transportation. So to see that happen was wonderful. But during that fight scene, there's the guy who's from Succession, who's recording the whole fight. He's like, "Oh, hey, it's me, and I'm seeing this amazing fight, and I'm going to be rating this fight on my social media right now." And I did used to do karate, so I know what I'm talking about. Like, oh my god. So something like that happens in Bullet Train. I don't want to spoil it because when it happens and how it happens is it does make you just want to slap your face and go, "Wow." But this is also so very much people. So I gotta say, yeah, the cavalcade of characters is fun, and even though it doesn't seem like there's a main character in the first two thirds, I somehow I'm like I'm still engaged. And like I said, once it all pays off and we get to the kind of the last third of the movie, which is we're still in speed, we're still in the danger, the threat, but the movie just takes a more personal turn where it does become very convoluted. This is the director of two Attack on Titan movies, and I did try watching the Attack on Titan show, and I had to stop once they started getting into the flashbacks of what happened to Aaron Yeager, but not the first flashback I was fine with. When they get to the second flashback and it goes into his father and the experiments, and it gets so convoluted of an explanation, I kind of just go, "Oh, I'm checked out now, dude. I don't need all this explanation. I'm into your story already. This you just make a whole show about your explanation. It doesn't need to be a convoluted explanation. Just make that a show or part of the show." And that is where this movie kind of gets to. It totally does an Attack on Titan reveal where it's like the circumstances and the explanations are very convoluted and don't 100% make sense. And yet, somehow, the way they tell the story, it does unfold in such a way where all of a sudden I'm into it. I'm like, wow, you made it work. Okay, dang, you made it work. So by the end of the movie, I was very satisfied with how we got to our conclusion. It's 100% speed, um, speed on a train, on a bullet train. But also, that sounds like what the original Bullet Train was. So maybe Speed ripped off Bullet Train. But also, I saw on Wikipedia the 1975 original Bullet Train, which has the same premise: bombs on a train, you gotta give us ransom or we'll blow it up. So apparently, even that was based off of a TV show episode of some show back in the 60s. So reference. But either way, I thought it was a really good time, and I don't want to spoil too much about it. But if you're interested, if you've seen this on Netflix and you haven't clicked on it yet because you're wondering, hey, is this going to be an entertaining movie? It does come both English dub and with Japanese with English subtitles. So, if you're watching this in America or where English is predominant language, you can have both options. We decided to watch it Japanese with subtitles because it's just nice to hear the real voices and the real performances, and you can just lock in so much better with everything that's going on with the characters. Whether they seem phony or not comes off way better when you hear it in the natural voice, I think. And so that's how we watched it. But you have the option of the English dub if you don't want to read subtitles. And it wasn't a bad dub, as because we actually when we started it, it was initially on the English dub, and it was fine. But definitely, I think I prefer watching the Japanese version. But it's cool. It's a really fun time. So if you're looking for that fun time adventure, I am recommending Bullet Train Explosion. Kind of a not the coolest title, but definitely a great title sequence. I was saying like the beginning of this movie has such fast cutting. It's a super fast opening title sequence where they it's kind of like a Mission Impossible title sequence where they're showing you sequences and scenes across the entire movie. But it's so cut so tightly you don't actually know where it's going to take place. So and then it gets to the title and it's such a dramatic title. And what's even funny is I think as we get into the introduction of characters, everyone kind of gets this kind of tight close up with a giant Japanese writing of who they are, and then of course the American subtitle, Chief Executive Officer. And by the time he gets to doing that the third time, it's when all the passengers are on the bullet train, the threat has been made, and before anybody really knows about it, and it's just the sort of train operation crew, the command center crew. Then this government official shows up, and he at first he seems like he's going to be a smarmy, annoying character, and because he totally comes off that way. But he also gets introduced to with this smarmy look of I'm in charge now, and then the giant special liaison with the government. I'm like, wow. So the movie has a personality for sure. It's got a lot of personality. I really like the cast a lot. Hana Toyoshima plays one of the main high school student character because we have a whole bunch of, like I said, the movie starts off with this high school field trip, but the main actress from that group of kids, that's the one we focus on the most. She's got some really good scenes across the movie, and I love the actress Rena Nonan. I hope I'm saying that right because I tear chicken scratches on my notes. But she was fantastic. She plays the train driver. Tsuyoshi Kusanagi is the conductor who, like I said, we kind of learn across the movie. He is actually the hero of the movie. But, kind of like as the person really would do, he subdues his emotions whenever we see him. It's like he makes himself the support character, which is what these people do in their jobs when they're just, hey, how can I help you? I help you and then I'm gone. And that's very much how he appears. But then we get these little nice windows into his character where, because he's training a new guy at the same time, and there's times when things get tense and the new guy's like, well, why are you so calm? Why are you controlling yourself? I mean, wouldn't you freak out and not care about this passenger or that passenger? And the conductor tells him, because it's my job. My job is to make sure everyone gets to the destination safely. So it doesn't matter if there's a personal problem with someone or if I don't like someone. That has nothing to do with my job. My job is to get people to safety. So that little window, it's the only brief window we get before the movie gets more personal toward the end. That I think this might be the hero of the movie. This might be the main character. But he's not a hero in the traditional sense. There's no dramatic end battle, Even though I said the opening is like Mission Impossible, there's no dramatic end battle where you're seeing, or Speed. There's no dramatic end battle where we're on the top of the train and the conductor's fighting the terrorist guy, and I mean, and there's a pistol whip and a dramatic pause, and I'm taller. There's none of that. It's actually the movie just gets more personal. It starts off, as sort of distant as possible, and then it gets as personal as possible. I thought, well, that's a very nice way that the movie unfolds, and we were all entertained the whole way throughout. So yeah, this is definitely a thumbs up recommend. I'd say worth the price of admission, although I didn't pay for it. This is my friend's Netflix, but worth the price of admission is first of all, the opening title sequence, like, whoa, okay, I'm in Mission Impossible, I guess, but it's not Mission Impossible. But no, the first time that there's a train, after it's come out that there's a bomb on the train, and now they're trying to get trains away from each other so that they don't hit. That first time is such a cool sequence. It's such a, because the whole time up till that moment, is this movie going to be good? I'm kind of enjoying it. We don't quite know who the main character is quite yet. Maybe it's this high school girl. Maybe it's the conductor. Everyone's kind of got little moments where we're kind of, this could be what's going on exactly. You know, who could, because it's also a who done it. Who's the bad guy? Is the bad guy on the train? Is the bad guy somewhere off the train? We just don't know for the majority of the movie, and that's part of the fun of it as well, is figuring out who's involved. But yeah, so but that first time that that two trains almost collide, and so early on in the movie, that was the moment where we were like, okay, I'm in. And then all the train sequences where they're trying to make sure the train doesn't crash, or there's no other situation with other trains, because there's multiple different sequences. All of that is those sequences when we get there, but all the stuff in between is good. But it definitely, considering the high stakes adventure that this is, it's all about potential train destruction and loss of every passenger. Considering that's the premise, right? That's our plot. So every time we get into one of those sequences where it's like, oh no, they're about to pass this station, we have to do this and this and this. Every single one of those scenes is worth the price of admission. And then I do think the final confrontation, when hero meets villain and all is revealed, not the explanation of the reveal, but the actual final confrontation after the reveal, I thought really, it was touching. It was surprising. Like, oh, that's what this movie's got going on underneath all the convoluted explanations. There's actually kind of this nice conclusion. I was like, dang, you got me. Again, I was expecting fighting on the roof of the train, going 200 miles per hour. Someone pistol whips and loses a gun, and I'm taller, and push the villain's head into a sign overhead. But it wasn't that. It was so much more personal than that. And I was like, man, okay, I'm in. I like it. So just the surprise of thinking the ending will go one way, and then that it ends up being that. I think, and then the actual way the movie concludes. Uh, some explosions do happen, but the actual way it concludes, I think all of our intense sequences are worth the price of admission, or in this case, your monthly Netflix service fee. So yeah, I think, yeah, this, without spoiling anything beyond that, this was a really fun time. The performances overall were really solid, and Shinji Higuchi, I will be looking for your work. If anything I've said sounds like a movie that interests you, go check it out. If you love speed, I think you'll get a kick out of this movie, because it's kind of more like Train to Busan in a way. I totally got Train to Busan vibes out of this, because you are basically on the train the whole time, and there is no superhuman, super spy action element to it. So it's just that relatability of regular humans dealing with regular humans, and I think that is what drives the fun of the movie. Is like, how are completely normal people supposed to deal with this situation? And the different, when you get the politician and the social media influencer characters, and you see, like, oh god, sometimes completely normal people just suck, you know what I mean? But and then even they have like some emotional conclusions where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I needed you to have a great performance moment, but it was a nice performance moment. I highly recommend the movie. And if you stick around for the popcorn, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite moments. Wait for the popcorn to end for spoilers. All right, if you made it through the popcorn, thank you very much for joining me. So I'm getting into spoilers, some of my favorite things about the movie. Remember, this is spoilers. The high school girl is the one responsible? Wow, that was a stretch. Before I even get into that, what I like about this movie is that it's really about ingenuity and morality. Those things thematically are the heroes of the movie, where you have the high school student who is actually responsible for these bombs, which is such a stretch. But in a way, it's like her sort of dark ingenuity, her desire to do this is really just to prove something to her dad and get revenge on her father for what we learn as years of abuse and treating her like she's not good enough and never really being a dad to her, which is interesting because he's supposed to be the hero of the original movie. Well, first of all, when we get to the dad scene and she calls her dad, and it's like, it is me. I am the one who did this, and this is payback for how you've been to me my whole life. How could you speak to your dad this way? Dude, this is not going to work out for you. The fact that she's saying dude, I thought was hilarious. But this is another Speed scene where in Speed, again, and I don't know if these things were in the original Bullet Train and Speed was copying the original 1975 Bullet Train or whatever. But when we get to that scene, that's where this whole movie gets so personal all of a sudden. But she makes him look inside his cabinet and there's the bomb there. It's the exact same moment that Jeff Daniels faces in Speed when he thinks he's found Dennis Hopper, and it turns out it's him and the SWAT team breaks into an empty house, but he sees this light it's not a thermostat. He realizes it's a bomb, and then the entire house explodes. But I gotta say, I hated the explosion. I thought that looks animated. It looks really bad. I think overall the movie looked very good. I thought there was good enough cinematography. But there were so many times you could tell this is shot with a digital camera because you could see that aperture adjustment. And it kind of bothered me a few times. But overall, I thought the movie looked very good despite clearly being a digitally shot movie. I think I don't think it's that big of a surprise seeing movies that are digitally shot these days, but this movie was kind of very blatantly, it almost looked like a cell phone the way this movie was shot, which I don't mind necessarily, but in this case, there was just some glaring moments where this is, okay, I see you're shooting on a digital camera because you're not even color correcting away the digitalness, this is just, we're just seeing everything. But I do think the cinematography gets beautiful toward the end of the movie. Again, when it gets more personal, after the turn, after she calls her father, and then the investigators, she literally turns herself in over the phone. And then, it's after the huge rescue operation where they do get most of the passengers onto another train and they're all rescued. But now it's down to our sort of main cast, the politician, the social media influencer, and our conductor and his trainee, and the driver of the train herself. When we get down to our last 8 characters and it's the last 30 minutes of the movie, and it's like the only way to stop the bombs is to kill the girl. She's just trying to get killed, and it does feel like one of those things, like she's doing this epic revenge, like this is how she wants to be remembered. And what I like about it is that when it comes to the final moment where everyone's considering killing her to make things happen, but the first person that approaches her is actually her teacher, and she's angry at her teacher. She feels that the teacher didn't really do enough to help her out, and then she wishes the teacher could see through the facade that she put up, that she's clearly not okay. But then in addition to that, we have the social media guy who's such an asshat, telling I like this little subplot with the man with the mask. It turns out he's wearing the mask because he's kind of famous for a horrific helicopter accident that killed 8 people, some of them students. And the social media guy says, well, why don't you kill her? Because, you killed 8 people, right? And then if you kill her, you're saving 8 people. So it's it's a net zero for your crimes. And it's like, and everyone's like, you idiot, that's not how this works. You know what I mean? And to put a death on this man's hands, that's, wow, But also, I do think that scene is so important I do think that's kind of how people think these days. It does feel like we're in another generation, we're in another time now where life seems to have a little bit less value to people who are living. It's just we do take each other for granted in this commodified society, where yeah, it's terrible. But I feel like that conversation is kind of like the generational conversation, or even the daughter with the daughter and the father. Like he's older, so he's old school. Sort of the abuse that she endured in silence for so long, and then became her motivation to do this horrible thing. The need to be seen, you know what I mean? And what I realized was, because at first I was wondering why did she turn herself in the last 30 minutes of the movie, and it was just after, because the social media guy puts up this website and does this whole video to celebrate himself and to tell everyone how he's trying to save the train, and creates the website from his phone. And so that, because the terrorist demand is for 100 billion yen or whatever the currency is. And basically, at that 2/3 mark of the movie, before the big rescue happens for most of the passengers, it ends up that the donations cap, they stop at about 60%. And that's when everyone feels like, oh, we're screwed. We're not going to make it out of this because the terrorist is not going to get their money. And I realized that that's the moment when she suddenly turns and she goes and hides herself when everyone else is being rescued. And I didn't realize it till the end of the movie when they all make it out of it alive, and the detective shows her that actually by the end of that night they did raise enough money. And I was like, what is exactly the symbolism of this? Is that she feels so unseen and not cared about, that she feels like no one really cares about her. But it all just stems from the abuse that she faced from her father, that even though her teacher did care, she just wasn't absorbing or recognizing enough that this person is still in pain. They're pretending to be okay, but they're still just enormously in pain. And so I think, but that all of that is really symbolized, or all of that is really shown best across this conflict of should we kill her or not, with the 8 people. And she tells the conductor, if you want to save these people, you know exactly what you have to do. And he tells her, this is where I realize he is the main character, or at least he's the hero of the movie, is because he says, I will never do that to you. And you kind of realize across the movie that the character who, the helicopter pilot character, I really like his subplot, because this becomes one of the first major panic sequences of the movie, where part of the reason the donations stop is because people see him on social media and go, oh, you're on this train, well, I don't want you to survive. And the fickle nature of people is kind of the villain of the movie. The movie is I really felt like, look, this is a movie from Japan. It's not like they don't know how to tell stories. I've totally seen Japanese movies where there's a clear main character and a journey and all that stuff. But this movie really starts off introducing you to all these different characters, and you don't quite know who the main character is. And the whole time I was wondering, is this a mistake or a choice? Because the editing is so cool in the beginning. I'm like, is this going to be a style over substance kind of movie? And actually, no. It's kind of the whole point of the movie, is that kind of the environment is the main character. And but there is a hero. We do have a hero, and there's multiple heroes. I really love the control center subplot, where we see everyone trying to figure out how to move along the train so that no one gets hurt. And the guy with his stopwatch, and he's timing everything. Again, like thematically, I love the genius, not genius, but the thinking things through, and morality are kind of the thematic heroes of the movie. And it's people just reacting to a situation they're put in. No one could have predicted this would happen. But on top of that, we have just the fact of that they're reacting to the sort of dark ingenuity of a very hurt girl. And so I like that the on the ingenuity side, it's the control room people, kind of the super ego. They're trying to solve things with their ingenuity and how they can plan things and time things and time switching the tracks so that trains don't crash into each other. All of that was a huge part of the fun of the tension of the movie, but also it was just a great way to display how, look, we can solve problems in society with our ingenuity if we choose to work together. But at the same time, inside the train, because that's where all the tension, where all the real stress is, because these people are all afraid of dying, the hero is morality and a stubborn morality versus a fickle, no one really matters because I matter more kind of attitude, which is what the helicopter pilot represents when literally the entire train car starts beating up the helicopter pilot, who at first is just trying to get away from people for this exact reason. And then they all just start beating up on him because they think if they kill him, then at least the rest of Japan will donate the money so that these people can get out of here. And the fact of the matter that the only reason that this movie ends with 8 people stuck on the train after this heroic rescue mission of getting another train to link up to the back of their train and get most everyone off. The whole reason that we're stuck with these 8 people is because they're trying to get the helicopter pilot to the safety train, and he just wants to die. He just wants to die because he already feels this enormous guilt for this terrible accident, but now he's quite literally been persecuted, and he discusses like, look, I can't go anywhere. People just treat me like this, and there's nothing I can do. I've made this horrible mistake, and there's nothing I can do. Just let me die. And again, the stubborn morality of the conductor is like, no, my job, my purpose. And what I like is he has this brief scene with the high school girl long before we realize she's involved. Although my roommate totally caught it. She's like, it's her. She caught it like halfway through the movie. She's acting weird this whole movie. It's her. And I also thought the guy with the mask was kind of like it's too obvious of a mislead that you can't see his face, but I couldn't figure who else it could be, so I still thought it was him anyway. But yeah, there's this early scene where when the people are beating the pilot up, he is it's the conductor who stops everything, gets the helicopter pilot out of there, calls for a doctor. The doctor checks him out. He's okay. It's after that the high school girl asks, "Why would you save a man like that?" And he says, "Well, it's my job." And he realizes that's not really the answer she's looking for. And then he just admits, "Well, I guess part of me wanted to save him too." And so you see her thematically and personally, she's being confronted with this kind of opposing point of view because she's just had this, as we learn after the reveal, when after she turns herself in over the phone, but says that the bombs will still blow up unless I'm killed. It's only after that the investigators look into her communication history, find one person she's been talking to recently that could have helped her, and it turns out he did. And it's this explosive expert that works for a construction company, who I guess he was also involved with the 1975 movie somehow. But that guy tells the horrific story of what happened to her and how he just really wanted to help her out, but he too was angry about what happened in the first movie. And so he just took advantage of the opportunity to both help this young woman but also get his own form of revenge. But he really talks about her with such compassion, and then when you see her so isolated, because she's really isolated throughout the whole movie, she keeps keeping herself away from everybody. And truth be told, no one really checks on her. No one really makes sure she's okay. Even the teacher kind of thinks, should I go ask her? But doesn't. She keeps keeping her eye on the whole crowd. And it's only the conductor who actually checks on her and says, hey, how are you doing okay? And of course she lies and says, yes, I'm fine. We know that's a lie when women say they're fine. We know it's a lie. Anyway, but it's, to see the building of all these little conflicts, and you realize that kind of the part of the reason I feel, and this is just my interpretation, part of the reason I feel that we don't quite know who the main character is, even though using directing rules, right? The main character, if you're a director, this is the filmmaker's point of view. This is what I do. I'm a filmmaker of over 17 years. Part of the reason my spoiler reaction is this analysis is because I'm a filmmaker for 17 years, a director for a long time, and this is how I look at movies. So that's why I'm kind of talking about this way. Sorry for not saying that before, but this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, why do these things happen? So, he is introduced with he is one of the first characters introduced with a tight close up at the beginning of the movie, before the whole field trip happens. So he is introduced using typical director language. I should have known he's the main character right from the beginning. But the fact that the story doesn't even focus on him for the first 2/3 of the movie made me really wonder, well, who is the main character then? If we start with him, he seems to have a clear standpoint, so maybe he's the hero, but at the same time, we're not really being with him for much of the movie. And I realized that, kind of, why is this happening? Why is the story being presented in this way? And I do feel that, just my interpretation, because I haven't done any research yet, it seems to be that the reason for that is that there's the larger theme of the movie is it's looking at how society, how people in crowds deal with situations, and they don't always deal with things in the correct way, especially when they're emotionally riled up, or if they think there's something they can get out of it for themselves. And it's this exact fickle, selfish nature of society that has made our young high school girl this evil person. And she's not really evil. She's just deeply, deeply hurt and wants some kind of connection with people. She wants some kind of sign that she exists and that she matters. But then when you see across this movie how all the different characters take advantage of the situation, the politician tries to take charge, and she even gives the conductor her business card to say, hey, I really like how you handle these situations. If you need to talk to me in the future, here's my card. And you know what I mean? She's not doing it because she's interested in him or because she's really impressed. She's doing it to look like someone who matters and cares, even though she really has nothing to do with the situation. And same with the influencer, who totally takes charge in a different way and creates the website through which all of Japan can help donate to this situation. But he's also doing it entirely for narcissistic, self-serving reasons. He at the very least, if he dies, he's gonna die as a legend who is, oh, he tried to save them. Look at his social media. So, it's just the the self-serving nature of people, and how he's not really interested in saving these people. He doesn't get to know anybody. He doesn't walk around asking people, hey, what's your story? If something happens, do you want to tell something to people? He's not really interested in people. He's just interested in himself. And even all of our high school characters, they're all just so caught up in their little interpersonal dramas, their kind of TV show like dramas, that they're not paying attention to the fact that our main villain girl has been missing from their crowd this entire time. It's just the fickle nature of society, and how on the small level, if it's gossipy drama, or on the big level, if it's just narcissistic need for attention, people just don't care about other people. And I think that's something I like a lot about, like Squid Game, which it's Korean, but I like a lot about, it seems to be movies from either Japan or South Korea. Like, there's a lot of paying attention to how society is, and kind of holding up a mirror to it and saying, this is what you are. I think something like The Dark Knight, or the Dark Knight trilogy, that's an amazing set of movies that's about what characters go through and how they transform. But I think in the case of these movies, this is like literally a mirror. Like, this is what you are. You may think you're a good person, you might have these seemingly good values, But at the end of the day, so many of you, especially in crowds, you panic. You're ready to throw people to the wolves as soon as the opportunity presents itself. And even if you're in a position of power or in somehow in the position of influence, you just use it for your own attention and your own needs, and you don't really do it because it's what needs to be done. Like the politician, she has nothing to do with stopping the violence toward the helicopter guy. She waits until after someone else does something and then just makes her move to look like she compassionately cares afterward. And then the same thing with the social media guy. He has no concern of whether, you know, getting these donations will actually help. It's just about getting attention. And it's what we would call, what's the phrase for it? There's a phrase. I'm not. I can't think of it. What it is, but it's all for attention. It's all for himself. And I just think that to me, my analysis of the reason we're seeing all these characters and we don't quite know the conductor is the hero until the last third of the movie is because the point of it is to show us just a reflection of how society operates, and that this is universal. Like what they're saying about Japan 100% applies to America, and this, like, and maybe and probably a lot more countries than we want to admit, right? So it's that the very nature of people, how they deal with each other, is a huge part of this movie. And what I love is that it all comes to a head with this final confrontation at the end, when it seems like the only choice left is to kill the girl or not. And after we get that, what I think was a really nice scene, because the movie does seem like it's slowing down because now we're getting into the investigation of what happened with this girl and how she got the bombs on there, and yet the train is still going. And like, why is it slowing down even though time seems to be running out? And yet once they talk to the bomb guy who helped her out, that scene, and I like that it's just the camera starts behind him, and then we slowly build to seeing his face, but we're just hearing his voice. And it's not so much that his face doesn't matter; it's that it's all in his voice. His voice so eloquently presents the script and the story. And like, even though it's technically exposition, it's storytelling. Like, this is an investigation, and we're figuring out what happened to this girl, and it's the only explanation that I found valid. Like, there's so much convoluted. Oh, if you kill me, then I have a heart murmur. The device in my heart will talk to my app, which will tell the bombs not to blow up. Like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Even the explanation when she calls her dad, and this is what you've done, and here's all the reasons, and you're this, and it just comes off as so sudden and convoluted. I'm like, should there have been set up for this? Maybe, I don't know. But it's all just, it's all to get us to this one personal scene where, even though this is a character we haven't seen yet, and once he starts telling what happened, it's not so much about his face, because he's not the most. He's just here to deliver her story. You know what I mean? And when the cops show up to him in the first place, he looks like, yeah, it must be time. You know what I mean? He was expecting them. So, when he's telling her story, and he just delivers it so perfectly. Like, this is one of the best performances in the movie, and we don't even see his face for most of it. And then we cut back to what seems like the penultimate moment. It's like, look, if we don't stop these bombs, the train will either be blown up, or something's going to happen to us, or we're going to die anyway. So it's either kill the girl or we all die. And the conductor goes up to her, and he's finally been pushed to the point where he actually puts his arms around her neck. And she says the same thing to him that she says to the teacher when she tries to reach out, and then to her father when she actually has a video camera on the bomb. Like, wow. But what she says, like, I did this just to see the look on your face. That this is, again, human psychology. Like, people who have been mistreated or feel neglected in life tend to act out if negative ways of acting out is the only way they can get attention, then that's what they'll do. People will do whatever it takes just to not feel alone, and it's terrible. That's a lot of why we have a lot of crimes in society, is that we don't know that people grow up mistreated or feeling like they don't have anybody around. And this is just the sort of most extreme extent of that. But when the conductor is pushed to this moment where to save lives he thinks he has to kill her, but when she says that to him, that's what breaks him right back to his own words of like, he can't kill her. And then instead he hugs her, and she just starts bawling. She's like, this is wrong, this is inappropriate. But I thought that's so telling, right? That what she calls inappropriate is a hug. It's a hug. It's not creepy. He's not groping her. He's not doing anything. He's just hugging her out of concern and compassion. And that's what she finds creepy and inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like, because truth be told, she's been isolated. No one even bothers to check on her. The only person who goes back for her is the teacher once the rescue mission happens. But again, so much of the movie happens where she is isolated, alone, no one's bothering. And so for her, the familiar thing is either being beaten or neglected. And so that's what she, in her mind, is the appropriate way to treat her. And that's why she's just gone to this way of like, well, if I can only be loved notoriously, then I'm gonna go out as the person who did this horrific thing to people, because horrible things happen to me. And this is how people are. People are we're all conditioned, and we all do react different ways. Not everyone who's treated horribly becomes a bad person. But in this case, for those who do, this is that extreme reaction when all you know is selfishness and being abandoned. That's what her character represents. But then the hero is the hero because he also keeps to his word, that he's stubbornly moral and compassionate. That he just hugs her and tells her, this is not your fault. Like, what happened to you is not your fault. Whatever led you this way. Because he does tell her story to them, that she's a victim of abuse in society, and she just feels like society's getting what it deserves. She's jokering, she's werewolfing, and he just hugs her and gives her compassion, and that's what breaks her and makes her cry. She doesn't turn off the bombs, and maybe she can't, or maybe she kind of just still wants to see what happens. But it was a nice moment that he literally brings her back into the group. And her lines about normalcy being this way that people say these things and act in ways just to keep things normal. And from her point of view, there's no normal. It's like whatever you think normal is not normal. And which I totally vibe with. But yeah, it's just like, but that's not the right way to go, buddy. And I just like that a lot. I think, again, the hero of the movie is both the ingenuity of people trying to solve problems with their intelligence, which is nice to see. I think we are all given to our emotions and love a good revenge story. In a revenge movie, she would be the hero, right? But this is not a revenge movie. This is a survival adventure movie. So she's the villain and the conductor's the hero, because this is all about saving as many lives as you can. But yeah, I really liked the construction of the story, to really, all these characters who are kind of, they're not really the main characters, but they do have these big scenes. It's all just building up to sort of make a statement about how we behave in society and what that behavior leads to. And it starts off with the facade of society represented by politicians and influencers, and then it just breaks it all down to the nuts and bolts of the stuff you don't see. What's behind closed doors is ultimately the most dangerous thing. It's that no one could possibly know this happened to her, except for the one person who does, who just she didn't feel helped her out the way she needed. And so, it's just that, you know, but what's the solution? Because the movie doesn't just present the problem, it presents the solution. The solution is stubborn morality and limitless compassion. That if we could just have truly stand by our word. And you can totally tell, like, if the conductor was her father, she would never have ended up like this. She probably would have ended up a lot more like him. And so it just, we get a little bit of environment fosters what we get. We talk about politics. Politicians are so terrible, but George Carlin himself said, no, this is the best of what we have to offer in society. So maybe society needs to level up. So even though this is, on the surface, a very sort of fun kind of adventure, race against time, race against a big plot, I just appreciate that this movie, it still does have substance. It has something to say. And even if I'm kind of looking too much into it, I do feel like it's still there. The villain literally says it. And but also, again, true filmmaking is not just dictating, but showing what is a possible answer to these problems. And I think, again, ingenuity and morality and limitless compassion are the things that save our characters. And it doesn't save them physically, but it saves their souls. And luckily, at the moment of morality and compassion winning, when he hugs her and she cries, and finally, it takes her a minute, but she finally hugs back. And, you see she's so different after this. And I do get that strange feeling like, look, if things were different, if she had met this guy in a different way and he was her mentor instead of the bomb guy, maybe that alone would have saved her from going down this path. And it is who you meet and who fosters you in your growth. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and this is absolutely another aspect of this movie. The village is doing a terrible job of raising the children. The children are going to grow up to either be like this politician or like this influencer or like this helicopter pilot, and you just see the viciousness and unfairness of society. Or if you're lucky, if you just can find that one good guy, that's what the conductor is. And that's what the driver is. I love the actress who plays the driver. It's like, at first I thought, she's too cute. I don't know if I can follow this. She's so cute. But then when things get more serious and you realize she's been piloting this train for hours, and she says, I haven't got up to pee. I haven't gotten up to eat. He gives her a water, the conductor gives her a water bottle saying, hey, this is for you. And he cracks it open for her, and she says, save it for later. Save it for when we get out of this, because yeah, I can't move my hand off this lever. I have to make sure that we get where we go. And then the movie leaves her for like 20-30 minutes, and we come back to her, and you see she is worn out from just trying to, the pressure of trying to keep this train exactly at the right speed, and all these different crazy scenarios they keep getting in. And she is finally getting worn out, and he actually helps her out. So I thought she did a great job of, once we got to that moment, and I really felt like, oh yeah, that's right, you've been doing this whole time and we forgot about you. And but again, she's quite literally the steadfastness, you know what I mean? So again, the hero of the movie is the conductor and the ingenious guy with the stopwatch and the driver. It's these people who keep us all going throughout all of our struggles. I think the hero of the movie is not just the people, but what they represent. So I just really liked that about the movie. I think it's a good movie on more than just being fun. Fun is always good, but having the substance of talking about society, talking about how we treat each other and how we behave. And I just really think that's what quality filmmaking is about, when it speaks on more than one level. It's that's what. Again, I have a new podcast. It's all about the filmmaker's perspective on action movies. But that's really what my spoiler section of this is. I'm really talking about how should we be looking at movies, not just as a filmmaker, but as truly what does the movie trying to say to us. That's what I'm interested in. That's why I do this spoiler section, so that I can talk about what I appreciate. So that's what I got to say. That's all I can actually remember. And seriously, this is a fun movie. If you did stick through the spoilers, even though you haven't watched the movie yet, I hope that you still watch the movie, because I think it's worth going through the experience, and you can decide for yourself whether my interpretation really actually adds up to the movie or not. But more importantly, do you like it? So, hey, if you've seen it, let me know if you like it. If there's something that you think was a cool filmmaker thing, or a cool story point, or even just your favorite scene, please let me know in the comments. I'd like to know. So, anyway, like I said, if you're a young filmmaker, you want to learn about filmmaking and looking at movies from a filmmaker's point of view, check out my Action Movies podcast. It is at the top of my home tab now. If you go to my homepage, that podcast is now at the top. I'm at 4 episodes. Episode 5 will be coming out this week. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Mahalo and aloha.